Hey, John chapter 20 is an incredible chapter. It goes from dark to light. It goes from doom and despair to incredible hope and life. Jesus has been crucified, and he's been put in a tomb, in a borrowed tomb. And his disciples are just despondent. They are just wiped out. They think this is the end of the story. They're a little clueless, even though Jesus has spent about 3 years telling them, hey guys, I am going to die for you. I am going to die for everyone else. But that's not the end of the story. I will raise from the dead. They haven't just started to believe. And so they think this is the end of the story, and they're just kind of packing it up, and they're just going, oh, that's it. And that's the beginning of John chapter 20. But then something happens. Mary Magdalene, she goes out on a Sunday morning. It's very early on Sunday, and she goes out to the tomb, and she discovers that the stone has been rolled away. Somebody has messed with Jesus' grave. So she runs to tell Peter and John. Now, John is the one that wrote this, so this is his eyewitness account. And I love the way that John refers to himself. When John is writing about himself, he calls himself the beloved disciple. He calls himself the one who Jesus loved. Basically, he's saying, I'm God's favorite. I'm Jesus' favorite. And I love that attitude. I think we should all have that attitude, where we just walk around, not in an arrogant way, but in a way that gives us life, and in a way that lets us know how much God cares for us. And so we're walking around thinking, I'm God's favorite. So are you. And I'm the one that Jesus loves. So are you. But I am the one that Jesus loves, and it's a really cool thing. So she runs and she tells Peter and she tells John, and she's like, they've messed with Jesus' grave. And so Peter and John, because they are dudes, they turn it into a competition, because that's what we do. As men, we turn everything into competition, and they turn this into a competition to see who can get to the tomb first. And in John chapter 20, verses 3 through 10, here's what it says. Together they all departed for the tomb to see for themselves. They began to run, and Peter could not keep up. Remember, John is writing this, so he's kind of like neener. The beloved disciple arrived first. Okay, so John arrived first, but he did not go in. There was no corpse in the tomb, only the linens and the cloths that he was wrapped in. When Simon Peter finally arrived, I love it. It's almost like brothers who are just kind of chiding each other and just kind of, when you finally got here. When Simon Peter finally arrived, he went into the tomb and he observed the same. The cloth that covered his face appeared to have been folded carefully in place, not with the linen cloths, but to the side. After Peter pointed this out, the other disciple, who had arrived long before Peter, once again, neener, he also entered the tomb, and based on what he saw, faith began to well up inside him. Before this moment, none of them understood the scriptures and why he must be raised from the dead. Then they all went to their homes. They finally, these clueless disciples who had been with Jesus for 3 years and just hadn't gotten it, they finally start to believe. And faith wells up inside them. This is a big deal. This is really big news. What are they going to do with it? Are they going to run to the newspaper? Or are they going to run and shout it in the streets? Jesus is alive. Verse 10 says this. Then they all went to their homes. What? Yeah, it seems kind of anticlimactic. Here they finally realize that Jesus is raised from the dead, and they just go home. But the fact is, that's where it all starts. They needed to go home. They had the most important news of all time. They had the biggest news of all time. So they needed to take it home. And they needed to tell their loved ones. They needed to tell their family and let them in, because that's where it all starts. You living out what you believe has to start at home. You learning to love, you learning to forgive, you learning to live like Jesus has to start with the people who are closest to you, who know you the best. And it starts at home, and then it goes from there. But that we see that demonstrated here. Really big news. Take it home with you. Let them know about it. Let them know that you're different. Share your story with those who are closest to you before you share it with anybody else. God bless you guys. Giddy up.